Jim. So I realized I was gonna do a quick research on one of my crazy theories, and then it's like because the nickname my crazy theories, and then it's like because the nickname is a Greek goddess, and we've already seen their opposite number, and it's like good luck finding any information on that, on that niche
Mm.
case, because obviously everything's going to come back as the goddess,
Which one are you looking at? Hecate?
Persephone. So,
Mm.
because isn't that what they call Demeter's daughter?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
yeah.
Demeter's daughter,
So I was
Hades'
like,
wife.
I want the daughter. I want all of 12 lines of information we know about her, not the goddess that is also, obviously named. And now we've met Hades. And so everything's like, oh, yeah, you want to learn about Hades? No. Like, give me a break. Persephone is her own goddess. I'd say woman, but that's just,
Yeah, no, she's more than a woman. So the Helen Beckett's child, Amanda Beckett, I think her name was, if you
hmm.
actually want to look for just that. Um, there was a recent podcast that Jim had done with Recorded Neutral Territory. Let's show up on Reddit sometimes. I watched that one, and they had mentioned something about Hecate that I thought was interesting. He had said that Hecate was one of the Greek goddesses that is still trying to do her job at the
Hmm.
time of when everything's are happening, and eventually that had to do with like dismembering parts of herself and spreading out the tripartite aspect to things like the Morrigan, which is what they had asked about. And then that got held up by the Fey mantles. And so there's a descendancy from Hecate, maybe not the same thing as being the same person, but who the fuck knows? I'm not sure if that means that Hecate's dead and like sacrificed herself, or if she's around but just more amorphous or something. Maybe that was also a part
Well,
of something of like what Odin to Vadarung did, of like stepping down in power to be more active.
I feel like there's definitely some very strong breadcrumbs between, the queens and Hecate, right? And
Oh yeah.
other tripart, you know, things, right? Like, because we've also got the scolds and all of that stuff, right? That some of those things are directly related, that they're probably like separate sides of the same coin. But if nothing else, maybe she infused her power into, the current, you know, Fey courts and everything like that. Um, yeah.
Well,
I,
this is an abstract thought, but I've had it significantly. I really wish EG were here to back me up in any way he could. What created the Never Never? It's existed out of just creation, right? Like when the creator, White God, made existence, the Never Never is one half of it, and we have the reality world of Earth, right? But there's this aspect of the Never Never that its geography is not set, right? Things can move
right.
around.
Yeah.
And we heard of like Margaret, of being able to, like, she was so in tune with it that she was eventually able to predict where those lines were going to go and how to travel and how to like deal with travel. And Hecate was a goddess of the crossroads of where
Mm,
nexus points and travel and gates. Okay?
okay.
Gates. This is where I started becoming less articulate of just Hecate did something, I think, with making the gates, making the boundaries of where we can go, making things more stable because of them. That like maybe 4,000 years ago, it was easier to grab an outsider and put it and do something with it. And then a goddess says, like, you shouldn't do that. Stop doing that. I'm going to make it harder. And trying to fill some of the structure of the Never Never. Maybe?
There's this is a whole episode itself, and you're like, man, I don't know if the two of us can carry it. And it's like, yeah, see, this is the problem with, so I need you to put this in your pocket, metaphysically speaking, and we need to outline around this theory, because
Okay.
I think what's important here is like, because we're humans, right? We've got to try and understand cause and effect and all of that stuff in a world that doesn't necessarily need cause and effect to happen, right? There's some challenges here. Okay. But if I was to humanize this and try and do like a if then statement, like one of the challenges is that we're including all of the mythologies together, but we're saying it's being run by the white god. And we're saying that the white god is the white god because he was he was an insider, to flip the parlance, right? There was only the outside, and he decided to create this little pocket dimension which generally cheesed everybody off, as we see in tons of mythology, with take Thor the Dark World. I'm sorry, but dark elves, there was only darkness, and then somebody made the light, and that really pissed everybody off. It's even atoms, right? In the beginning there was nothing,
Mm.
which
Mhm.
exploded, and then that was
The
generally
Hitchhiker's
considered
Guideline.
a bad idea, whatever. I'm paraphrasing probably two sources now. But like, so we know that the white god started it. But who did he bring with him, or did he create him, and where did it go from there? Because like the problem is, like, if you followed through the mythologies, and the Dresden Files multiverse tends to put them, butts to nuts, as far as like there's a succession, right? So that the Norse fed into presumably the Greeks before feeding into, but
And
like
I think
ob- I know, but like the timeline doesn't seem like it
no, no,
matches.
no,
Is it
the
Greeks to
timeline
Norse and
that,
then
so I think it's
okay,
Egyptians, like
sure,
Mesopotamia and
sure,
Egyptians, then to the Greeks, and then to the Norse, and then to the
okay,
Fae.
sure.
Um,
Yeah. So, but there's a progression, right? Is the
yeah.
point. Whereas like culturally and historically speaking, several of these cultures overlapped, right? Which is another problem that I have with some of this idea. And so, like, some of it might just be like maybe that's the reason why there was a succession, is like they were around. And so then when it was time to pass the mantles for whatever reason, because we still don't understand why that's even a thing, right? Other than it has happened. We don't know why it has to be passed from one to the next. So like, so did the white god create the Mesopotamian gods, or what? That's a question, right? In which case they preceded Hecate in whatever her form was, because presumably like the function existed,
Mhm.
right? Whether she herself existed or transformed, I don't know. I don't know enough about Mesopotamian mythology to try and draw parallels anywhere. But we do know he started it, right? It doesn't matter. In this case I'm just going to say he, because generally the Christian god is the idea of the
Also,
concept that we
English
have,
allows
right?
for the neutral unknown to be male. That's fine. It
Sure,
really isn't a problem to say someone unknown is a he.
sure. So in any case, that entity, the white god, whatever, he made the universe the way that it is. He presumably would have had to erect the gates, even though again, they're not supposed to be literal gates, they're metaphysical gates, they're conceptual gates that have an opening. you know so like he would have had to do that, and it's like, again, like in my mind, I mean, what does he have at his disposal? Like, here's a chicken the egg question that's almost academic, but does he create the inside first, or does he create the angels first? Or are the angels just outsiders that came with him to reverse the fall, you know, the fall literally, right? Where it's just like, did he create the angels and then the fall happened, or did he convince a bunch of outsiders to come inside with him and follow order, because that's another key difference here, right? Probably easier that he just had them created as part of his machinations, right? You know.
Mhm.
And so
See,
again, it goes to like why the gods, and part of what I'm getting to, and the reason why I'm trying to like lay this out like dominoes, because we still haven't even got to the part of when did the people show up, right? And so like, and they, like, I think his creation of mankind is what precipitated the fall, because the angels come in or are created to make a clockwork. And then he's like, what if chaos monkey? And if you're a DevOps engineer, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, he's like, I created a perfect ordered system where physics rules and chemistry has rules and all of this stuff. And then I created these chaotic little monkeys with wrenches, and if they get smart enough, they can just start breaking shit and they can call in the outsiders, which will break more shit. And Lucifer's like, are you out of your God-forsaken mind? And then he can say that literally because he's talking to God. And he's like, what are you doing? Right. And so this all goes back to like, when did the Never Never show up? Because I was thinking, is the Never Never a subconscious construct? And I think part of it is, but it would have had to have existed first, right? It would have had to have existed alongside physical creation, because like where else is everybody else, right? Or did it come later in the sense is like when he walked around the Garden of Eden, he was literally there because where the fuck else was he going to be? There wasn't anywhere else to be. So you asked a deceptively simple question that just
it was loaded.
so,
I knew it was loaded.
yeah.
I'm not that great on the Book of Genesis. I'm trying to remember. What was there a line after eating of the tree of knowledge that like you've been cast out, right? As in the
Yeah,
idea of Eden was in the Never Never, and now you
maybe.
get Earth. So
And I mean,
sorry.
it is defended by an angel with a flaming sword, type of thing. So,
Uh-huh.
but it was commonly accepted that Eden was a place on earth, you know, at least in the scripture and whatever. But yes, in the Dresden verse, maybe that's what it is, is that
But I mean,
somewhere there's a flame portal with a
I
tree
kind of
of
think this is
knowledge and shit.
part of where you
Like,
were
did we
going. Of
just
like
pick book
what
20? So
or they were like intermixed and then they separated slightly to give. I mean,
right.
another thing that Butcher had said in this interview was the creator wanted you must give humanity a chance. So stop fucking with them to all of the gods. And that's why they had to step back. And so to be active,
Interesting.
they had to like what Odin did of having to get around it to be able to stay to
It's
it.
just such a challenge because like each of these mythologies, right? They're also their own creators, right? Like Zeus created mankind and Odin, I don't know, like the Norse didn't create mankind, I don't think.
Yeah, they kind of did
You
sort of.
know.
And so they
Okay.
in the Norse story, Odin and his brothers they find a giant named Ymir and they create the world out of his body and they put four dwarves in the cardinal directions to hold up the sky. There's always someone holding up the sky. Um,
Right. It's
and
very heavy.
yeah, that's where you get the name Austri because he was east. Austria, it's the east land, whatever. Um,
Nice.
and then
Conveniently making like the heart of Europe, the core of the world. So
yeah,
even though
they
they're from the Norse. So
but yeah, same linguistic things. And then so then humanity isn't made in the same moment. There's parts of Emir's body that kind of like they rub together and then they just create people, but they created like Asgardians and Vanir, the different
mhm,
kinds of gods or higher level beings. Humanity was created first Ash and Embla or Ask and Embla, but they're made out of trees. People came out of trees. That happens in a weird amount of mythologies. Like there's some of the Native American mythologies of people came from corn. Like you just kind of
mm,
unwrap a corn husk and out comes a person. And those were the first people of humanity. And so it shows up in a couple of different patterns. Like there's generally some form of sacrificial body, like the giant Ymir. There's somebody holding up the sky because like was it Amun in Egyptian? A little rough on the name, but there's somebody who's literally the body of the sky who's holding it up. It, and then the people come out of mud or trees or something. The Norse has a world tree, right? And so did the Aztecs. Some sense of the tree creates humanity and people. And one crazy schizo thing I read on Wikipedia years ago that I still love is that that's just a remnant of the fact that we used to be tree apes.
huh. Okay.
No idea if it's true, but I love it so much.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, it's one of those big fascinations that I'm sure like anthropologists would like be raptured on the spot if they could figure out like why does everybody, not everybody, but why do so many cultures have a flood myth? Why
Oh
do
yeah,
so many
because
cultures think we all came
there
from
was a
trees?
fucking
And
flood.
right.
Um,
But like but on opposite ends of the world and all of this stuff. And it's like, I mean, maybe just the phenomena is so common, right? That it's like you flood out the valley where your entire civilization exists, and then you think, oh shit, the whole fucking world must be flooded, you know?
I mean, most of the flood
And
that I myths that I can think of are, like, Mediterranean or nearby, like, long amount nearby, like
mhm,
Sumerian or something,
sure.
Gilgamesh
Yeah.
area, wherever that
But
was.
still, I mean, enough of those places are sufficiently distant where,
Yeah,
like, you could understand a cultural exchange, but not necessarily that they're talking about literally the same flood that flooded the whole world, right? You know, what what little nugget I want to insert here that makes a kind of sense is like, again, if your entire civilization is between two rivers that flood, and that's pretty much all you
mhm,
know, right? You
mhm.
know, then it makes sense that you'd be like, oh shit, the whole fucking world's flooded, you know?
There
But
was a video, I think just because a few years ago, I think I even linked it to you a long time ago from a channel called Religion for Breakfast talking about the flood myth and how
okay.
similar they are in different areas, and in particular, looking at a description somewhere in Mesopotamia of, like, this matches here, this matches there, but this also has a description of, like, the edges of the known world, and it's like, it's
Mhm.
that mountain right over there that they were talking
Right.
about, and so
Sure. Well,
I don't
yeah,
remember what
and
was
I think I still missed the mark with the nugget comment was that, you know, in the early days of civilizations, you're gonna settle down in a valley with a river because that's where you're gonna get your water and start your agriculture and everything like that, and rivers tend to flood because, you know,
because
physics
yeah,
and reasons and stuff like that. So yeah. And if it is just like the known world again, you know, like it's a whole lot harder for them to go 100 miles out from the core of their civilization, you know, than even chariots would allow, you know,
mhm,
wagons or anything like that, right? So I don't know. I don't know. It seems plausible, but it that's something that's always fascinated me because I don't have it on my fingertips, so this might be bullshit, but I feel like even the Aztecs, you know, and similar kinds of cultures on this side, Aztecs, Incas, whomever, had a flood myth, and so I was like, that's the stuff where it's like we're on the opposite ends of the pond here, my dude. I don't see how there's a direct correlation where you made cultural exchange, you know, between the Middle
mhm.
East and you know and the Incan Empire unless there's wild amounts of trade that we didn't know about somehow, you know?
I
So,
mean, it is
yeah,
possible, but, like, if there was one very significant tsunami that caused
right.
enough of a an effect, don't know where it would
Which
have to be
Japan
for
has had, you know, a couple of
yeah,
times, so we know that,
yeah,
you know? So, theirs are a little bit more specific in the sense that it's like, we can also tie those back to historical records that we can't with other flood myths, you know, or at
mhm.
least not as easily. So, but yeah, so maybe it's just one of those like this is a some not generic, but a somewhat, you know, reoccurring, you know,
Oh,
natural
I'm dumb.
phenomena that just happens elsewhere. But
Well, how much of it was the fucking Fomor? We're talking about Dresden Files.
well, yes, if we're gonna do a Dresden Files related explanation, you know,
Right, I
that's a
mean,
possibility, but
it
it
is
doesn't have to be
significant.
either though, because it's happening in our world. That's part of what I'm saying, you know. So
Yes, and a small pet peeve that I have out of urban fantasy is when everything becomes magical rather
sure.
than also even just human organic, like, I hate it when it's extending like, the only reason that Shakespeare was as amazing as he was is because someone gifted him the ability to
Yeah,
do that. Like,
because
fuck that.
Mab was
Leave
his
him
muse,
alone.
you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Being
exactly.
amused is not the
So
same thing as, like, "And now you have the ability." It's like, "Fuck you, leave him
right.
alone." But
But in the
but
fantasy world, it is, you know, so because we even see that in Dresden, right? Like the word muse may be thrown around, but literally all those people that we've seen ever at Arctis tour and at, you know, what's her nuts Maeve's parties and all of that shit, they were, you know, inspired by the Fae and then they got, you know, then their payment was to come play for them for the rest of their lives and whatever, you know, which is true to the legends and stuff, but it does I'm just saying Butcher does that somewhat as well, especially around the like authors and any of the creative types. I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien was the fucking knight of the summer court. So find me an author who wasn't, involved with a fae somewhere, I guess, or a famous, artist that they haven't implied at least had a passing fling with one of, the fae or something like that. So, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but I do understand your grievance. Is like not everything needs to be related to that stuff, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of problems with that. I mean, Star Wars, like you can't take a shit without a Skywalker or a Palpatine being involved anymore,
Yeah.
And it's like the universe does roll on, like if you're going to say it's our world but there's a masquerade, like there's a limit I think where it's neat that, you know, the wraiths are involved with politics or something like that. But
Mhm.
to say like the wraiths have tipped every election since the founding of our country or something, that would be egregious, right?
Right.
You know, which
They
I'm not
can't control
saying,
everything. If
but
anything, it would just be really boring.
right,
It's
you know,
I
so
don't like it when it takes away from someone's accomplishments, but if it's kinda like what Leah did in Grave Peril of like, "The answer's all around you," but it didn't actually tell him anything, didn't actually change any of his abilities, that's
sure,
fine. That's like it's just walking the line of it enough that I can accept it, but whatever. But talking about flood myths, the sea peoples and
sure,
the Bronze Age collapse and all of that stuff. What if they were the Fomor, right? And so
right,
some of the flood of so it could have just been the Fomor doing all of that crap.
right.
But at the same
Well, and
time,
we've
maybe
got
they weren't yet as aquatic as they are now.
maybe, but I mean, because we've got the Fomor, but then we've also got why can't I think of this? Atlantis, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that's another at least parallel, if nothing else. Atlantis at least gets the benefit of like usually the myths talk about how much, better their society was and the gods were jealous and stuff like that. But, like you don't think that the gods or at least godlike powers were involved driving the Fomor out of Europe and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but this is taking a weird bend from what I expected of this episode, but
Yeah.
you know,
Uh,
like I said, there's plenty of speculation. Like
oh, yeah. I
we've been
have
laying off the sauce for a while.
not even really gotten started.
Right.
So why did the hounds show up in peace talks? That was a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
The
Yeah.
well, when did they show up in peace talks? It was right after, Harry went to talk to Justine, and then Ebenezer showed
Right.
up of, "Why are you talking to
Yeah.
Justine? Because why do you
Yeah.
give a shit about a vampire?" Alright, and the hounds show up, it's like, "What's okay, so Justine, outsider, or at least Walker at the time, because she's not normal
Mhm.
right at that moment, just sends it." I was like, "Why not? Just fuck with them or something." But in, 12 months, Ebenezer says he's been hunted by the hounds for several years because,
Gotcha. Yeah.
uh, one of the things that Butcher said in this interview was, "The people who know about the outsiders get attacked by them. Like, it is dangerous to even know about them
Okay.
because then they get their attention or somehow." Ebenezer knows enough to be getting their attention
Right.
and has been hunted.
So why this kind of got brought up a little bit because we were talking while we weren't recording, was that I got annoyed very slightly anyways that it was like, oh well, the hounds kind of got used prematurely because they attack Ebenezer and Harry, and the hounds are actually associated, at least in the mythos, of finding people, like for instance the first guy they go after is a time traveler. That's why the hounds start coming after him, is that
Oh.
he's broken a natural law, and specifically he's traveled through time. And so, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing a lot of it just because I like the main points of the story rather than all the nuance and everything like that. So that I may be missing some details, but I was like, oh, they would have been such a natural reason for Harry to be pursued by the hounds after we do the time travel book, was kind of the point. And did forget the fact that Ebenezer said that he's had to tingle with them a couple of times, right?
Mhm.
So that's probably part of why he's good at it, is because he's survived them more than once, so now he's kind of got some additional tricks and stuff. And then, but if it's just knowledge, right? Like Harry's known about outsiders for a real long time, you know.
But he's a Starborn, and maybe that leaves
That's
he's
one of the things. He's
maybe,
he's
like,
got
if
a
they
cloak.
can't
you
find
know?
him quite as well, you
Yeah.
know?
He's in a phone book, so thank God they don't read. Like, the outsiders are like, "Oh my god, he could be anywhere in the world, including the one place that we fought him 3 to 5 times and where he's advertising his services." But he could be anywhere. Uh, Outsiders, man. I mean, they can't think in linear, processes, so maybe that's part of it, but, you know.
They do seem to make some dumb mistakes, like low-level mistakes, specifically thinking out of, Cold Days when, He Walks Before was trying to mind whammy Harry and, like, making him picture that he was being tortured by Mab, but using an iron implement. That's a
Mhm.
bad, simple mistake.
Yeah.
It's like, so they're clearly they're very capable, but maybe they're also a little dumb.
Yeah, just didn't pay attention to the details, which is vitally important for a lot of things, especially for wizards, you know? So, mm,
I've had quite a lot of active chat today. I'm enjoying it, but I'm just wondering, like, is there anything that's quite relevant to what I'm going to pivot to? I
right.
have a crazy, crazy thought. I really wish EG were here to at least give me some foundation to start, which is, what do we know about Dracul?
He's a demon
A
of
demon.
some
Is that what
kind.
he said?
But 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 that's Harry's word, and Harry
Uh-huh.
has been bad about understanding the definition of a demon, and that's my argument. And
Uh-huh.
so like Harry calls him a demon, but Harry is also called the outsiders demons. So demon seems to be the more general word of like evil spirit, even though Harry differentiates spirits from demons. Something more general to Harry than it is in specific, right?
Right,
So
right. So,
I think that's the gist of it is we know he's a demon of some kind. So,
the white court are outsiders bound to human forms. The red court, we can assume the same based on the idea of Lord of Outer Night, of
right.
whatever. Their transmission is
Yeah,
clearly different, but same something or other.
right,
We can assume the black court is somehow the same. The story of Dracula is he
right,
made the black court or went to it or something as a kind of teenage rebellion.
right.
And now he's sitting in Mab's garden, Dracula and his lover, in Mab's garden, because he wanted to spend the rest of eternity with her, or something like that was the line. So Mab's hunting outsiders too, or at least people who are risking reality by playing with outsiders. And we know that Dracul is a
Mhm.
starborn, but he's working with many outsiders that are Black Court vampires.
Right.
Could he be an outsider that is bound to a human form and just likes it here and is intelligent enough that he doesn't want to risk reality because he just wants to kind of keep going in the same way that Harry was having a conversation with Thomas's outsider of, if you don't kill him, you get to just keep having fun and not be in the void of outer night. Mab thinks that Dracul is on team reality. That's why she says that she's not going to help Harry fight him because she might need him in 5,000 years. Is it possible for him to be both a starborn and an outsider?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm?
Um, Maybe we get that answer in Mirror Mirror because if the red court are tied to outsiders and there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, chief among it is the Lords of Outer Night, for example, and just be like there's at least a thematic overlap, if not a direct cause and effect here. But if Harry was turned into a red court vampire, nega Harry in the mirror universe, then I guess we'll have that answer, right? Does he stop being a starborn if he gets turned?
I can't
Presumably not.
imagine. Yeah.
And if the Black Court are similarly fueled by, and he had been turned previously, like they keep their magical powers at least, right? That's one of the horrors of getting turned. Both red and black court vampires tend to keep their sorceress powers, their wizard powers and whatnot. I don't know, man. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
it seems like those aren't mutually exclusive, but if you'd asked me 5 minutes ago, I would have said one of the prerequisites of being a starborn seems to be that you had to be born. But I guess that doesn't preclude the possibility that you were turned, in some way or otherwise modified later.
Yeah, and I don't think
So,
that Dracul is a black or vampire. He's something else. But
sure.
maybe, whatever he is the outsider that bound himself to a specific body that was starborn? Something? Anything?
Right. Wild.
Yeah. No, I've been going crazy for the past couple weeks.
Um, yeah, sorry. Nope, that's kind of blown up my brain for a minute. So, yeah, what we need to be doing is taking these ideas and mining out little nuggets we can try to confirm or deny, in a couple of weeks. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
but
promise if you ask a question that's too big, he just won't answer. But yeah,
yeah,
so how much do we think that Margaret knew?
I mean, an absurd amount, apparently. So,
Right.
she can navigate the never never at least better than most people who aren't a fae. And she figured out the starborn thing somehow. So
Hmm.
maybe from reading
Yeah.
a library that doesn't exist. So maybe
If that
because
ever
Ebenezer
gets
left.
mentioned again, I will
Yeah,
scream.
yeah,
It won't necessarily be a bad one, but fuck.
yeah.
I,
Maybe Ebenezer left his light reading out. Classic mistake. So
hmm, this one's it. So if someone voluntarily grabbed an outsider and bowed it to himself, I don't
right.
understand the motivations that would do it because that, like with Laris and Thana, that's not what they did it out of desperation, but
Diablo.
you know,
So he was one
yeah.
of the Haradrim, and then he had to bind a soul stone to his body so he could fight with the demon inside, and then the demon corrupted him. And then, I mean, there's precedence in other fantasy fiction of doing
Hmm.
doing things that end up poorly, but with good intentions and stuff like that. So, but I'm just spitballing, obviously, but
Hmm. I mean, that's all we're
it
doing.
It could be a thing because it's like, I mean, you think about it, the Starborn, and if you're the good guy, if you're the chosen one, because that's essentially what this comes down. Like, we've kind of muddied the waters in the sense that there can be more than one, and they're not necessarily the good guy. They're a chooser of some kind, right? Not necessarily just, you know, the
The
positive,
fulcrum,
right?
right?
Right.
Because like with Morgan Star in microfiction is like he could be the destroyer that everyone's afraid of. I don't
Right.
quite think that they're gonna have to do Highlander unless you
Right.
want to try to explain how the TV show there's always a Highlander every week. I don't get it. Um,
Well,
because
because they started out with many hundreds or so, and then there can only be one, way down the line somewhere. So,
yeah, because
yeah,
I mean Rashid's still alive. We know he was a Starborn, a Fulcrum.
and he's overlapped with Dracul somewhere. So,
Yeah.
those would be my 2 entrants into that space. But unfortunately, I mean, we only know about, like, 4 or 5 of them, which is still a lot for a chosen one, but it's like it's the Capaldi Doctor Who meme, is 4 a lot? Well, it depends. Are we talking about a chosen one? Then it's way too many. But if we're talking about Starborn, then it seems to be the right amount. So,
Right, because it's a moment of time or a period of time of when people can be born, of like just the earth being in the right position or something like that, which leads to, based on the amount of people born, a few thousand whenever it comes around.
right, at least in this day and age. So,
Yeah. Um, Dracul implies there's a competition.
right.
I don't quite
Which
remember that, do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of implied, at least in the end of 12 months, that the reason why he's taken an interest in a whack at Harry
Mm,
is because he believes so. Um, so
kind of took it
so
the other
yeah,
direction,
I
actually.
if not directly said, it's at least implied enough that I feel like there could be evidence for that idea. But it also, in my opinion, could be just Dracul being a dick. Like, you know, because like maybe he wants to be the chooser, right? He's going to make sure he's the chosen one because he killed all the others, or something like that, um, I think there's not enough evidence to pin down all of that stuff, and we haven't heard anything from anybody else with sitting at the adults table yet, right? So maybe we'll get some of that when Listens to Wind and River Shoulders teach
Yeah,
Harry
whenever
how to
that's
be a
gonna happen.
Starborn finally. Next book, presumably very early, according to the Word of Jim. That's what I believe was more or less stated. So yeah. I think somebody had asked him like how far he had gotten, and he had mentioned the training montage, or at least they had asked what was going to be in Mirror Mirror, and it's like, well, it starts off with the training montage because they've got to fulfill that promise, and it's like, oh, okay, so 12 months, Harry's not going to just get pulled out of bed in the middle of the night or whatever. That might still happen, but it didn't happen in 12 months, obviously,
Right.
and it's not going to start Mirror Mirror. So that does make it kind of interesting where we're going to have this major adventure, but it's going to be bookended in some way, presumably, because I got to imagine he makes it back by the final chapter. I'm sure,
Mhm.
the final mega chapter where everything gets wrapped up at a minimum. And then we have at least one to a few chapters before, you know, Mirror Mirror, before he gets
So
sucked into
hoping it
the
interrupts the wedding.
maybe, so yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
so they moved the
Like
wedding to midwinter. Imagine how bad it looks for Mab if her knight disappears when sealing an alliance during midwinter.
the winter night got cold feet. That's what everybody's going to think and say and whatever. And
Yeah.
then of course, well, there you go, right? So Harry shows up right in the nick of time and just be like,
Mm.
the rumors of my disappearance were premature, and then gets married. So, but okay. Anyway,
Mhm. Okay. So Margaret, do you think she had a
yes,
relationship with Mab? Why did she make Leah the godmother and not Mab?
Mab's busy. So,
I mean,
but also maybe
yes.
she's not insane, like all the way insane. So,
Mm, right. So Margaret clearly understood something about outsiders. She understood something about at least Lord Wraith, because what we learned in Blood Rights is that he has been protected by an outsider, and that's why magic doesn't affect him, or magical attacks, they just kind of slide off him. So that's why Margaret's death curse was so impactful, is that it wasn't the same thing of like trying to hurt him or anything, it's just stopping him from being able to feed. Still kind of curious on how she managed that particular spell, even being powered by a death curse, while giving birth to a starborn. So she clearly can plan out her pregnancy and birth date.
well, there's some pretty easy math for humans. So,
Eh, but
and
doesn't always
add
work first try.
well, but I mean, there's some kind of window, right? And wizards. So yeah, maybe she could nudge
Yeah.
it or something.
I'm certain she
But
nudged it a little. I mean, even pointing
yeah,
out that Thomas's birthday is Valentine's Day, maybe that was also nudged just for fun. Or it really was just thematic accident of because he's tragic.
sorry, I just got lost in a nuance, and I guess it's academic, and it's kind of a trigger warning. So just be
Mm.
prepared if pregnancies are touchy for you and whatever. But I was like, do wizards have miscarriages? Because they channel life energy, and maybe they know better than other people. Like I mean, there's no examples, right? We've got one pregnant wizard that we can point to, and we've got one or two white court pregnancies we can point to. I think that's the sum of them, and everything. We know those end poorly,
I mean,
tend to and
Dresden's been
whatever,
pregnant,
but
but that doesn't exactly count. Y it would
yeah,
probably depend. They'd probably have some amount of risks to miscarriages. If they're aware that they're pregnant, they might be able to do something to protect it, but if they're not, if it's really early on, when
sure.
miscarriages happen anyway, and they're just a
Yeah.
bit too active, just like that can happen anyway, they get into combat, something hurts them, and then, like, decisions still have to be made by the body.
Right.
Not to anthropomorphize it too much. I'm sure they still have risks. They might be able to be a little bit more protected from some things, maybe at risk of other
Sure.
things.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be hopeful here and just say, like, unless unless something else comes out asides, it's like the whole manipulating life magics, like, I don't know, maybe there is some chaotic factor where it's like if they play with certain kinds of energy over others that it's problematic or something,
Yeah,
but just
an
yeah,
evil
just the
warlock
idea.
might not be as good at carrying a pregnancy than a healer like listens to wind.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, academic probably, but yeah. Since we were talking about, like, how much could she control anyway,
Yeah,
I
I
gotta
mean,
imagine among the things that were included in her studies, or at least she came up with a really good guess on, were if I conceive, on this night, then, you know, plus or minus this amount of time,
mhm.
you know, and then, yeah, maybe she's able to feed it in, and maybe that helps explain why Dresden's as strong as wizard as he is because she's feeding him, in a more controlled way, and just like pumping in energies, while during her pregnancy or something. I don't know. Wild
I mean, the
speculation,
same reason why
but
Thomas might be more powerful in his hunger, the way that Laura talks about him, that maybe
sure.
because you got that extra nutrition from Wizard Mom.
Yeah,
It
exactly. She fed him instead of him feeding on, just
mhm.
on her life force. Maybe subconsciously in her case, but again, so yeah, like one key takeaway for
Okay.
um
Maybe
maybe
yeah, because
I mean, she did make it a bloodline curse, we know that, right? So,
that's true, but she also
both kids.
to use the new infant Harry that didn't even have a name, that is a Starborn, to kinda, like, help power to deliberately attack Lord Wraith in a way that's going to bypass the outsider protection. Yeah,
Ooh,
totally, I'll buy it. That,
oh my god,
like, with
that
his first breath, that he was, like, already in a spell and he didn't know it.
the idea that she didn't do this just necessarily out of hubris, but that she did it because she was under Lord Ray's thumb and that she knew, like, Starborn were resistant to, whatever,
Mhm.
and that having a Starborn kid was her ticket out, that would be
Well, it's
wild.
if you're doing a death curse, you accept that you're dying, right? Because you have to.
But I don't imagine that was plan A, you know?
I think that was plan. I think she knew
Mm,
that she didn't have a way out. I think that she did everything she possibly could to save Thomas. I mean, and also knowing that Harry was gonna have Malcolm. When we see Margaret, when they meet each other and they know each other, they see it as a in the soul gaze, and they get to see Margaret, so that you would know each other, and that is the moment that Harry sees Thomas fighting with his demon. Not the same way that Laura is melded with hers, fighting it, and it's hurting him over time. And Margaret would have known that Thomas would have been like that, just because wizard insight. And so she deliberately makes another child that is a starborn and gives information as she can to whenever he's ready for it with Leah. And whatever the fuck Margaret paid to Leah to get that kind of dedication out of her, like to be the fairy godmother of someone for a wizard's lifespan. It was like 300 years. That's not simple. That is not passing the salt. And she gave that jewel that has, like, if you are smart enough to ask the question, you can get the jewel. And so he uses it and changes to travel around. I bet that if he was smart enough to ask fucking questions, that he could be able to get more information about the outsider and specifically Lord Wraith in that jewel. But he's never going to ask a fucking question. But Margaret did 13-dimensional chess. Maybe it was because of the whole outsider thing and maybe to protect reality. Maybe all of that's great, but it might have been just as simple directed of wanting to save her sons. The perfect thing that she did with the end of her life is to get back at her ex and to save Thomas.
right. And then heaven's like, we can work with that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I like it. So I don't have anything to quibble about or add on at the moment. I think it's plausible. I think it's simple. You know, we'll
And
see. One
just
one
the
thing that's kind of tragic about it is that I believe it came from the Q&A that I attended, even that it was like somebody was asking about Harry's parents, and Jim pretty much said, I think we've got about everything from Harry's parents that we're going to need. So there may be some final moment where we see them or whatever, but they're not otherwise like necessarily integral to the story beyond what we have already. Which is kind of a bummer, actually. It's like I want that to get wrapped up in a bow somewhere, and maybe it does. Maybe we still get something in the BAT or whatever, but that's kind of the trajectory that I'm taking out of that is that, you know, or maybe the time travel, maybe he goes far enough back, that he sees his parents or something, but the important takeaway there too is like whatever kind of information evidence that we would need about his parents, we already have. So,
I have more than enough information
no.
to believe my own bullshit.
Yeah, sure,
But
so
yeah,
it
it's
just means it's tough to get an answer unless we catch him being generous during an interview or something. So,
yeah, like, to get any kind of confirmation of what Margaret was fully planning, what her real understanding of the universe was, like, because if she was a traveler in the same way of that to be called the Fae, to maybe this, like, thematic inheritance to Hecate, did she find the gates even when she wasn't supposed to? Did she understand and learn even more than anyone understood? And like, maybe that's also part of the reason that she was going to die is if the outsider says, "You're too dangerous, go away." In the same way that they're hunting Ebenezer. Did
somebody else at least on your wavelength.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
totally. I like you,
yeah.
local wolf. But
Don't
that's
feed
just
the
like,
crazy, like, come on.
oh, no,
So
I like that that's the one that gave us
no,
the
I'm
sword?
saying he shouldn't feed you.
Oh, no, no. No, they 'cause they're the ones that gave us the Einherjar question that was Soulfire.
Nice.
Yeah, I recognize that username. So if Margaret knew all of that stuff about the outside and the gates and Never Never, everything, she should have had a relationship with Mab, right? She should have
Sure.
known them?
I mean, I can't see that she has got a relationship with Leah and Mab doesn't know a lot about her, like,
Yeah.
so maybe it was one of those, like, she was smart enough to keep out of Mab's way or something like that, but yeah, I would totally expect that they cross paths. I mean, just look at Harry, right? Like, anything that Leah had, right? And Leah as her
It's a
handmaiden
support.
has had, right, has had to swap in for Mab at times so that Mab could do things, right? So
Mhm.
so if
And
Leah
vice
was
versa.
ever out of pocket because Mab sent her on an errand, then you know that Mab had to show up to fulfill something for Margaret. So, uh,
I had a new thought. I
uh-oh.
mean, it's more kind of just retreading old ground in a weird way. Like, Leah got the athame and then got infected, and she said she thought she was strong enough to withstand it. Right? That's what she said in Proven Guilty when they find her as a she-sickle?
Sure. I
It's interesting, that's all. Just that's unfortunately the kind of end of my thought of, like, what was she trying to do with that? And did Leah know who Cal and Kamori were that were at the Bianca's party when she got the athame? Like, did she have
seems
an
like
understand
no.
was she trying
But
to
if she did, would it have mattered because she was obligated, right? Because she had to bring a gift for the host. So that's why she had Amarakius. And then the host had to return the gift because she's
Mhm,
Fae. So she
mhm.
had to take the gift. So there's no implication in my understanding that
Right.
she knows or knew who those two were because there was no like there was nothing other than pure acceptance of the gift, right? She wasn't like, "Ah, shit, this is gonna bind me, you sneaky little fucks," or anything like that. So she was just like, I mean, she wasn't quite Fairvex happy, but she was quite happy, I think, right?
She was pretty
Um,
happy with the Athame because it had to be of equal value, not just that she had to get a gift, but equal value to Amarachius.
right,
That's significant.
right.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like just getting her there means that she had to accept it. Actually, so the Fae need to get something of equal value, but are they forced to accept it? Do they have a choice in whether to accept it or not?
I'm assuming it's the obligation, right? Like, because it has to be balance. It or they have to accept the gift, or it otherwise gives them leverage, right? Would If we wanted to expand the scope, right? Because it's like, take a simpler example of, like, you can't accept their hospitality, accept their food, and not be obligated to them in return, right? You know. So if Bianca had not given her a gift of equal value, then Bianca would have owed her a favor of equal value.
Right. But
So,
if
but I don't know if Leah could refuse it. I don't know if we've ever
that's the
seen
thing.
that, you know. Yeah,
But if Leah even knew that if Leah knew it was infected and still wanted it anyway, and being able to just hubristically think that she could withstand it,
right,
then there's no problem in her accepting it, as in it's not like a contradiction. If by
right.
the act of offering it to her to balance the scales forces her to do so, it's interesting.
Well, do you want to take four-dimensional chess and say Mab knew that they had it and wanted Leah to grab it, knowing that Leah had to take the dive to get it off the board, and that Mab knows how to cleanse it, and it's going to take Leah out of the game for a couple of years, but that's a worthy sacrifice to get a powerful artifact and to cleanse it of the nemfection. That I could see Mab doing. I don't know if Leah was in on it, but I could see Mab pulling that one off. So,
Well, to add into that, Leah becomes fairy godmother to Harry. Leah becomes disabled because as of summer night, the mortgage was sold because Leah's now unsafe or something. Although she shows up in summer
too
night too,
powerful. Yeah.
but yeah, the mortgage was sold to Map. If some amount of actually no, that wasn't even because of the fairy godmother thing. That was because Harry just owed uh, Leah because he said he was going to become a hound and then refused. He just owed that. That was the only thing that Mab had bought.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when he gets the deal to make 3 favors to Mab, which she eventually starts using as become my knight.
That doesn't happen till later though, right? No, it
And
does. That does
she
happen in
starts it
Summer
at
Night?
the end of Summer Night after Lloyd Slate has been revealed as a betrayer and
Okay.
he's taken away and Harry thinks he's going to be killed, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Then it's like, I need a new knight now. Do you want the job? And he says, hell no. But
Gotcha.
it's like, so this, it's like just a smaller obligation of Leah's is what Mab bought, and then it's like using it to test Harry. I mean, I was
So you
wondering,
could
like,
ask
is
me
this?
to just pass the salt and that would be one of the favors? Just so. You fucking idiot. So, yeah.
I do like the scene of he tried so hard to make sure that it was all going to work out into something that was reasonable, but
Right.
I can hurt you just for spite.
Right. Yeah, 2 out of 3 books, and you're already wearing the mantle later, so or
Hmm.
yeah, 2 books out of 3 favors, I guess, is where I was going with that, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I'll accept this. That folklore
Source,
says that
trust me,
they,
bro.
yeah,
So,
that's,
just
I'll
kidding.
accept it.
Yeah.
It means
With
that they
what we've
can
got on
refuse.
hand, seems plausible, yeah. We barely scratched the surface,
Oh,
as
yeah.
you said, because yep. Yeah, you came loaded, so
Yeah. And it's like, how much else do I want to try to break off right now? I got my bigger
I
things
know,
out
right?
there. I got
We got
like
6
the
minutes and, ah, yes, let's do another big theory. So, here's one for you, because I like to push this button as often as possible and because that'll get a nice 5-minute laugh. If your theory involves time traveling Murphy,
mhm.
reconsider. So
Yeah, no.
so though though we did get a new one that maybe we should play around with at length at some point with the time traveling Bach, because why not? So, you know, because yeah, it
Like the
there's a theory
enthusiasm.
floating around Reddit because, somebody's 12-year-old came up with the idea that maybe Bach is Cowl, and I'm like, "Is that really crazier than Harry?" Like Cowl being time traveling Harry?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's slightly more, but it's like
Wait, so
once you throw time travel in the mix, like, fast forward Bach 60 years and why not?
or,
Yeah,
you know,
so
Bach is the British guy that's in Damon Reach.
oh, Jesus. Not everything look, okay, the answer is yes, because we're using the theory that everybody is Rashid, right? Because there's only one character in the Dresden Files, and it's Rashid with his time travel shenanigans slash Odin slash, even Murphy is, I can't wait. It's like having The Rock with a little pigtail curly wig, like
Mm.
as a little girl. We'll just have Dwayne The Rock Johnson cast as Rashid, and he will play every single character in the Dresden Files,
Nah, I want Odin
including
Fair.
Murphy. So, you know, but anyway, yeah, like I mean, that's the problem with time travel and mental manipulation and stuff like that is that there's such powerful abilities you can do quite a lot of shenanigans with them if you use them right, so yeah, I don't personally ascribe to the fact that it's Bach, but it's not crazier than many of the other theories that I've had. I'm still curious if it's, if he's bled through from the other dimension or if he's Simon Petrovich that lived and stuff like that,
I'm
but
still on the side of it being Petrovich. Nothing
yeah,
has dissuaded me from that. I've seen the theory that Dracul was from another dimension of reality, and maybe that's also why he can disappear without even displacing air. I don't
yeah.
know. Don't know where that idea
Um,
came from either. But like I
Interestingly, there's a different fantasy that would line up with that a little bit. If you've ever read the Myth series, um that it's kind of a comedy and it's puns and stuff like that, so it's like myth adventures and stuff like that too. But vampires come from another dimension, and the reason why they're good at magic is because different dimensions have different magical potential based off of their ley lines. And I think it's limbo is where the vampires come from, and they have thinner ley lines, so they get really good at using magic there. And then they come to our world, which is bountiful in magic, and that's why vampires are powerful, that sort of thing. So I mean, it's not unprecedented is all I'm really trying to say. Like, it's not the craziest thing I've heard of, but for a Dresden universe thing, I feel like once you get high enough in the hierarchy, which universe you came from becomes moot. But if Dracul's not from our universe, that potentially makes him Mab's rival. Like, not as in, they're on the same playing field, but he'd be stronger than her, in
I
which case
mean,
he would be more bound,
we did
presumably.
people have
Yeah.
asked questions like this before. Like, and so Jim said that if Mab went up against like Ferrovax or something, I think it would be very close, and maybe she'd just barely win.
Right.
But very close.
Because she's
So like,
sneaky and underhanded and,
oh yeah, cheats all the time. Yeah,
yeah.
and like so yeah. What is the who would win with the power? Like I don't know if
Right.
anyone's asked
I'll
like
tell
Mab
you.
versus Dracul.
Right. I'll tell you who would lose though, the
Everyone.
Western Hemisphere, Earth. So, like, I feel like that's one of those fights where it's like, yes, one of you is dead and one of you is dying, and the battlefield, which was the planet, is not in very good shape. And that's presuming a solo fight. Do you really think Mab's not going to bring, a chunk of her armies to bear? You know, so
Maybe she only gets one. Because Dracul only has Mavra. Oh no, he's got Yoshimo and Wild Bill too. So he's got three.
he's.
It's
I mean, we don't know because he had quite a few people show up unexpectedly at the end of 12 months.
but
So
he consistently wants to lose them. He's tired of excess weight. That his
but
like
we don't
hi
know the size and disposition of his forces,
right,
so
but his disposition, especially with Harry, and even what he says to Lara, because Lara published Dracula and got
right,
rid of a lot of his excess staff he doesn't need in his organization because he's a businessman. Um,
right,
it's just he wants people who are worthy of it, like Mavra.
sure,
It, he doesn't want people who are too rigid or too stupid.
right.
And so if they cannot deal with a fight with Dresden, they're not worth it. This is just like the beginning of battle training or something with the oncoming defense.
No lies detected, no disagreements. So, but yeah, I just think he's going to have as many minions as the plot requires, you know. But as far as people we actually care about, yeah, it's probably the wizards, Mavra, you know, maybe one or two more in the bullpen that we just haven't seen because it's Dracul, right? And you know, we haven't. Well, I mean, you say Dracula is in the garden, so I guess we know where he's accounted for. So
Yeah, and I don't think Draco gave a shit very much about his son, but
yeah,
Dracula had a tragic ending, sort of, whatever.
sure.
I mean, her gardens could be a collection of like you. I mean, obviously, people who just like got a little too uppity, or she just wants the prowess to be able to say it. But if she's been hunting outsiders, or the people who are threatening reality by messing with outsiders too much,
I don't know. I like the idea. I feel like there's not enough strong evidence for that in the sense that like she didn't seem to get all that hot and bothered when the Red Court were doing it.
but she
So if
did
that
tell Leah to indulge herself. Yes,
well,
Leah had
yeah,
her own
I
reasons to
mean,
do that.
I'm sure she takes the shot when she's got the opportunity is different than she makes the opportunity to take the shot, I guess is part of it, right? Because she didn't like worry about sending the winter night after him, for example, you know, or you know,
Oh no, no,
repositioning of her own
she benefited
forces
quite a
or
lot from that.
well, I'm specifically talking about like where was Winter Court involved at all with the Battle of Sicily, you know, where a lot of that was happening, you know. And the fact that very often the White Council was chagrined at the fact that even though they had a truce with the courts, they couldn't really get Winter to even guarantee them safe passage, which was kind of the bare minimum of what they were asking for. Doesn't really seem like she was put like really going to bat to stop the outsiders and the White Court for what they were doing. I mean, she show up to help Ebenezer fight the Hounds of Tindalos? Does she, you know, counter Cowl, you know, in any significant way? Unless we just want to say, well, Dresden was there and that was enough, you know, or
Sometimes that will be
I'm
enough,
saying
but
is
like
like
so
notable instances where the outsiders show up. Do we see Mab's influence, like beyond Harry being there, which may or may not be Mab's influence depending on the book anyway. So
if I wait
that's
long enough,
that's
this is
all
going
I'm
to
saying.
become an idea. No, you're right. That like in the war with the Red Court, when the Red Court was using outsiders, she didn't do anything. She was static because I
From our
mean that was
perspective anyway, at least, you know.
oh fuck no, that was proven guilty, wasn't it? That was when she was stuck in Arctis Tor. That was when she
Okay.
drew Harry into Arctis Tor to protect her and to fight the fucking outsider that was there.
What outsider that
The,
was there?
okay, so at least there was one of the Denarians. And
Yeah.
for one of the Denarians to be attacking Arctis Tor, it's like I think this kind of got a little conflated. My fault. Of like
Mm.
they're working
If
together.
they were
Like
also corrupted. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever.
They're presuming the Black Council is trying to bring the outsiders back. There's at least
Mhm.
an alignment of goals there, you know? Yeah.
Yes, like
If they're not directly infected. So,
there was two different major attacks happening on reality. One to Mab, and one to the actually no, there's three because there's Mab and Arctis Tor, and then there was the White Council and uh, what Michael had to go send to protect against and bring them alive, which allowed it to save Molly. And then the third one was the fact that Maeve got infected.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, God, my head's starting to hurt. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I mean, again, just to reiterate at least a little bit, the Battle of Sicily is, book 7, proven guilty book not 8. So
yeah, yeah,
so
okay.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, because Never Never time travel shenanigans, maybe there is some overlap there, right? Maybe Mab does slow down space and time for the duration of the fight because she did it for Harry anyway, right? So,
No,
but
maybe you're right. Maybe we do get to see the Battle of Sicily from Harry's perspective during the time travel.
yeah, I mean, I think it'd be cool just because I like big battles, and that's one of the biggest battles you have in the whole book series as far as like wizards engaging with their primary enemy and stuff like that. So yeah. But sorry, we're gonna have to do part 2, 3 through
Oh
7 or
my god, the
something because
burden.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I'll be back and even crazier in 2 weeks, and next week we'll argue about the strain again because
That's
we'll
just
see.
season 3, right? Or we did season 3 and now
We
it's
did
4?
season 3, so now this is on 4, and
Well,
then
better get
done.
started then.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
right then. So if you want more crazy theories, join our Discord, which is pay us $2 a month, and yeah, we'll do a lot more of that there.